Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome in, everybody. It is Sports Daily. It is a Tuesday edition of the program. Glad to be here with you. I'm Jacob Albracht. He's Tommy Castor. Jad Chambers producing for you. You can get in touch with the program on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Thanks for listening to us here on KFH. Thanks for watching us on our video stream, which you can find on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Glad to be here. Big show coming up for you today. We'll get through the Western Conference Finals, wrapping up last night. Another exciting game. We'll do that. We've got a lot of cool, interesting topics coming up in our next segment, something that came in yesterday. Colin Klein, K-State offensive coordinator, going to join the program in our next segment. So we'll have that for you. Happy to do that. K-State on its Cat Backer Tour, which is a fundraising effort. So we'll catch up with Colin Klein on the offseason. It's first time in a while, I think, we've had him on. So excited to do that. K-State fans, stay tuned for that. All kinds of good stuff coming for you. Lauren Hibbs named the Coach of the Year in the AAC. That creates a pretty interesting situation as it pertains to his future. We'll get into that. Do we care about OTAs? Like, is that another one of those things in the NFL schedule we pretend to care about, or do we actually care about it? We'll talk about that. And Hunter Dozier's time as a Royal is done. All kinds of good stuff coming up on the program today. Tommy, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Jam-packed show. We only have 2 hours. I don't know how we're going to get through all of it, but a lot to get to and looking forward to diving right in.
Yeah, it'll be good. Let's start with the finals and get, to all of this, as Jad's got some audio here that pertains to it. Number one, Denver gets it done behind their MVP. And, it's a great performance from him. Another triple-double, 30, 14, 13. LeBron James was fantastic, 40, 10, and 9. Not enough. King James can't get it done. And we knew they weren't going to win this series. It was good to see them, though, continue to play. Like, it's not disappointing that the Lakers lost the series. Don't misunderstand me, because the Lakers are one of the teams I grew up despising, right? Like, they were the enemy team. I'm not sure I feel that way about them now, but I'm never going to be sad when the Lakers lose. But it is sad this series only gave us 4 games, because each of those games were really, really good. This one was too. Lakers just short in a last-ditch effort. They had a really bad third quarter where they were outscored by 20 in the third, and that doomed them. That little bit doomed them. And again, for Denver, in a game that, you could go home in game 5, you can get the win, you're getting outscored at halftime, and they come out and they just blow the barn doors open in the third quarter. They are relentless in what they do. And no matter what you thought of this series, I don't think anybody thought it was going to be a sweep. But here Denver is. They get it done, and they get it done quickly.
Yeah, another one of those games where all 5 starters for Denver in double figures. We've talked about that throughout the course of the playoffs, that when, their starting 5 is incredibly balanced, and then you've got the star power of Nikola Jokic, that, at that point, the Nuggets are basically unbeatable. They didn't have a great first half. The Lakers jumped out ahead, had a 15-point lead at halftime. And, I kind of thought, all right, well, this is something that the Lakers, they want to try to avoid, obviously, being swept. And so they're going to, come out with their hair on fire in the first half and
they did
anything possible. They did, for sure. And then it just shows you, again, I think the word that you used was relentless with the Nuggets. Like, they continue to grind and do their thing. And, the adjustments that Mike Malone made at halftime, it really worked. It paid off in the third quarter as the Nuggets jumped out and, they were able to get right back into the game. And, LeBron, for, everything that is ever said in the legacy and the narrative and the history of LeBron James, the one thing about him, especially in this game, was that he put the Lakers on his shoulders, and he shouldered that burden and did everything that he humanly could do to try to will the Lakers to victory. And they came up just a bit short.
Yeah, they did. And that's okay. Like, a lot of credit to to everyone involved in that series because it was good. The topic now becomes, because after the game, in those moments, LeBron James hinted he's 38 years old. He's been playing for 20 years, that he maybe played his last game. He's also told us at times this year he really wants to play with his son, who we know is going to USC. But, there was – so basically, let me just run you through and paraphrase the ending here. I got a lot to think about, he said after the game. Just personally, with me moving forward with the game of basketball, I got a lot to think about. Then it was followed up on to ESPN. Basically, the question, when you say that, what thread should we be pulling on that? LeBron's answer, if I want to continue to play. As in next year, yes, you could walk away. I got to think about it. I think anytime we reach an off season with LeBron James or any player that just finished their 20th season, that it shouldn't surprise us that LeBron James has a lot to think about. Now, do I think he's played his last game? I do not think that he's played his last game. I think that in a moment of putting it all out there in a series and getting swept by a team, and, Father Time is undefeated. We all know that. It's like, God, are we going to really have it? Because what else is LeBron playing for at this point, right? Like, if he's not playing for a championship, what's the point? And so I'm sure there is in that moment some thought being given by LeBron to, man, is there any way we're going to be good enough to beat that team next year? Because that's what you have to do, right? Like, you have to think of it that way. Like, what can we do to be better than that team that just swept us when we played pretty well? And that, I get it. I get thinking about that. It doesn't surprise me that he said this. I think that he won't be done. I think he's still too good. I'm not sure that he'll be able to just walk away. But it really does become a question, Tommy, of can the Lakers be better than Denver? Because next year, that's what you're going to look at, right? And
right.
I think it's possible. I do think it's possible. I think that after the trade deadline, there were some things that probably happened. And it really has to do with Anthony Davis, right? It's not so much as LeBron James going to be able to do it next year. It's Anthony Davis. Or is Anthony Davis going to be back and able to go? Because if he is, I think they could find enough pieces to give it another run.
Yeah, I think you have to also look at the state of mind that LeBron was in right after the game. Put it all out on the line physically, mentally, emotionally. And the guy's 38 years old. You have to imagine he was exhausted, after that output. Of course, the questions are fair. He's been around for a long time. I was thinking about it the other day. You and I are the same age. We're both 37. LeBron has been in the league for more than half of our lives, and you and I are, just a year younger than LeBron.
Kind of you. I'm 38 now. LeBron, think is
right.
I think LeBron is older than me though, but yeah, we went to college the same year, basically.
Right. And, so he's been, a staple in the league for, my entire adult life. And, so now you look at it and he's got a couple of sons that are growing up. He's got a son that he wants to play with, that he's made that very public. So I don't think he's done, but I do think in that moment, you start to become a little bit more reflective, after you have that huge performance and came up just a bit short. And I think that there were a ton of question marks. Even as recently as before the trade deadline about whether or not the Lakers in this current iteration of the team could even make the playoffs, if they were even capable of, doing anything, making any noise in the Western Conference. And not only did they make some noise, but they made it all the way to the Western Conference Finals. Now the question becomes for LeBron at his age and the longevity that he has. You mentioned Father Time is undefeated. Is it important for him to stick around with the Lakers? Does he think that they can get over that hump and win a championship because of, the way that the Nuggets are positioned and then other teams in the West? Or is it going to be a situation for him where maybe he starts looking elsewhere? I don't think he's done with the game of basketball, but does he start looking elsewhere because he knows he doesn't have a ton of time left?
I don't know. We've got some of the audio from after the game. Let's let Jad hit that for us.
Play for anything besides winning championships at this point in my career, and I don't get a kick out of making a conference appearance. I've done it a lot. and and it's not fun to me to not be able to be a part of getting to the finals. But we'll see. We'll see what happens going forward. And I don't know. I got a lot to think about, to be honest. And just for me personally, going forward with the game of basketball, I got a lot to think about.
Yeah, look, don't you think too that LeBron's got a dad, right? And has to like consider like, man, how nice would it be to hang it up and go watch my kids play basketball? I mean, as much as he might want to play with Bronny, that's such a long shot of the planets aligning. I mean, I suppose he could retire for a year and then just go join whatever team drafts Bronny, right? Like, I don't know. I think when some players reach this age, it becomes a question of, oh, can they still play? Right? It's not that with LeBron. Like, is there anybody on the planet that wouldn't take LeBron James on their roster? Like, he looks fantastic still to me. So I get it. I totally get it. Like, I'm in the same stage in life. Like, we all are, you get, and his kids are much older than my kids, but it's like, like at some point you work as hard as you can 24/7. And you're like, I just kind of want to go be a dad and enjoy my kids. And especially when your entire career, their entire lives, you spend basically half the year on the road. I totally get it. And I got no, like, this isn't going to be one where I like hot take the topic of LeBron's future. He's capable of playing, number one. But number two, like, I get it. I get not knowing at that very moment because he's right. Like, why is he play? He's not playing to make conference finals. Like, he's playing to win championships, which is also totally understandable to me.
Yeah, to me, that didn't sound like a guy that was ready to retire and hang it up. That to me just sounded like a guy that was tired. A guy that just, put his team on his back in game 4 to try to avoid a sweep. And, he was the primary reason why the Lakers were even in that game. And so to me, that didn't come across as he's reflecting on his career and he's done. And, it just, to me, sounded like, look, I need a break. I'm tired. I'm 38. I carried this team. And, now I need to figure out, and in my opinion, it's not, I need to figure out if I want to keep playing. It's more of, I want to figure out if this is the right spot for me, if I'm going to compete for championships, if that's the number one priority in the short amount of time I have left, is Los Angeles the best place to do that? Or is there another location to make that happen?
Yeah, look, he's not a free agent yet. He's got another year. I think he may have like a player option on it, but it's like for $50 million. I think,
but even regardless of his contract situation, LeBron's got all the power in the world to make whatever happen.
Yeah, it's not as much that it's like, can they navigate that contract, or could he navigate it enough just to get out of it? Probably not. So here's my absolute just guess that's not educated, but just a guess, just a gut feel. He'll play next year. And then he'll just hit free agency. And if he wants to go follow his son and try that avenue, he can do it. I think that's what will happen, because I do think ultimately the thing that will make that decision is the Lakers are much closer to a title than most of us thought that they were. And I think they can get there with the right pieces. I do. I think that, if they are able to keep this group together and either draft well or go get a couple of veterans to come in, right, and just become pieces, they got a shot. They did a really nice job. But he's got to let go. He's got to let the Lakers front office do their thing like they did at the deadline. And I think he'd probably also be willing to do that now. 869-1240 is the IHOP hotline. We're going to take a break. When we return, Colin Klein expected to join the program, K-State's offensive coordinator. Excited to catch up with him on the K-State offseason and everything they've got going on. We'll do it as we roll forward on a Tuesday edition of Sports Daily.
Dude, you gotta hear this.
Go ahead. I think I want to hear this.
Sports Daily is on KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody, to Sports Daily on this Tuesday edition. Glad to have you here with us. Joining us on the IHOP hotline, offensive coordinator at K-State, Colin Klein. Colin, welcome into the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Man, we're excited to talk to you. It's an exciting time. You guys have the Catbacker Tour going on right now. I know you've been a part of some of those, and there's one stop coming into Wichita. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But let's talk about this offseason, both for you and for the team. You had some tough decisions to make, but you're there in Manhattan. And, you know, just I guess at the beginning, like, what is it that still has you there in Manhattan, and how much have you professionally after your playing days?
No, absolutely. Well, I mean, K-State's just it's an unbelievable place. So fortunate and blessed to work for someone like Coach Kleiman, who's the utmost character and integrity and family-centered and, you know, obviously an extremely amazing coach and mentor for me. And, you know, just felt like, you know, my time wasn't done and still there was work to do. And, you know, really just have such an amazing group of players and staff. It just, you know, that the time wasn't right.
So, Colin, dialing in on that, you know, a little bit more, both you and Coach Kleiman have contract extensions that were made official during this offseason. How important is that on the recruiting trail as you're talking to players, and not only high school players, but working the transfer portal, that sort of thing, for these players to know that, you know, there's some consistency there with the football program?
No, absolutely. Stability is at a premium in college football right now, you know, and when you have an established system, an established program that has a culture of serving people, taking care of people, and winning, you know, you know, you want to hang on to that, you know, and so I think that's what it's provided. I think it provides, you know, young student athletes the opportunity to come in and develop, you know, and football is a developmental game. And having the, you know, stability within your staff, stability in your program provides the, you know, the best environment for those student athletes to grow.
Colin, let's talk about the current state of college football. It is, you know, consistency seems like it's probably more difficult than it ever has been for programs You played at a time when some of these opportunities weren't there for players. Now, as a coach, you've got to sort of deal with the other side of it. Where do you fall in this modern era of college sports with transfers and NIL? You've got a unique perspective because you were such a high-level player. You would have, you don't have to say it, but we will. You'd have made bank in the NIL world. So, like, that's got to be a little bit conflicting, right? Or how do you handle that?
No, I really think I think it's for athletes to be able to use their their name, image, and likeness, and be able to take advantage of some opportunities. I think it's a great training ground for real life business too. You know what I mean? A lot of them are able to start and be a part of things that are really cool. I think as long as the biggest thing that I think the game of football will purify itself a little bit too of just what truly are the motives behind it. You know what I mean? We've got guys like Will Howard and I guess a local, kid like Avery Johnson and, from Wichita, really capitalizing on the opportunities to give back and use their platforms and use their ability to get involved with, their communities and get involved with organizations with Will Howard Be the Match, campaign and different things that weren't possible before. And I think as long as the perspective is, hey, how can I help everyone and give back? And obviously, there's, some personal benefits as well, which is fantastic. But I think as long as that perspective is in place, it can be a really good thing.
Colin, one of the things that we've talked about on this show multiple different times in regards to the program and the success that you and Coach Kleiman have had over the last couple of years has been the development of quarterbacks. And you mentioned Will Howard, you mentioned Avery Johnson, Skylar Thompson is obviously on the list in the NFL with the Dolphins. Talk a little bit about the importance of developing quarterbacks and what that kind of identity can mean for your overall program.
Well, it's obviously critical, and everything goes through that position. And we've been so fortunate to work with just some incredibly talented, incredibly high character, high work ethic, selfless young guys. And obviously, Coach Kleiman and myself, we try to work on that and grow that and preach that also. But credit to them, they've done a heck of a job embracing that. And just all of them have such a great passion for the game, learning the game. It's been a lot of fun for Coach Kleiman and myself because Coach Kleiman is a defensive guy by trade. And so he coaches the secondary. And so he's in my meetings all the time. And so we're kind of all quarterbacks, myself and coach, kind of looking at the board both ways, right side up and upside down kind of a thing. So it's so good for our guys to be able to see and learn the game, from a different perspective, and him providing that to them, I think has been extremely beneficial. And guys that want to serve their team, ultimately and compete their butts off to be the best they can be. And it's proven true.
Colin Klein joining us, K-State offensive coordinator, the Catbacker Tour coming into Wichita. We'll talk about the tour here in just a couple of minutes. Appreciate the time, Colin. K-State fans are so excited to have you back here succeeding and helping take the program to this point, which is so cool to see. I mean, when you get alumni and you get former players and that kind of thing, it makes it better. They also want the best for you professionally too, which is a really interesting perspective, I think, from a fan base. But when you think about your career, and I know you've got to focus so hard on like what's right now, but what do you think, and you may not know the answer to this right now either, but like, what do you think your ultimate ambitions might be in the world of football now?
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, the first part of your comment question was so accurate. I think not only is it the on-field success that we've all experienced in football and basketball at K-State, especially in the last year, it's been so cool. I think it's the how it has happened, how we've done it, and the type of people from Gene Taylor, Coach Kleiman, now Coach Tang, and all of us trying to be a part of it, of how we're doing what we're doing. We're trying to love on young guys, push them to be the best they can be, compete at the highest level, and do it the right way. And that's, I know that really rings true with our K-State DNA. And that's, I think, why that excitement is being generated. And yes, results have followed, but that's so fun to be a part of. I know for me personally, truly it's whatever the Lord has, and whatever journey I end up taking or not taking. Yeah, I would love to be a head coach someday. But at the end of the day, it's like you said, if you start focusing too far down the road, you're going to trip up and land flat on your face. So it's just about being where we're at right now and making K-State as good as we possibly can.
Well, Big 12 championship, obviously last year, Sugar Bowl appearance against Alabama. Really, this team, Colin, burst onto the national scene last season. And, obviously we know in this part of the country, the way the program is being built and competing in the Big 12 and all of that. But you guys had the opportunity to really be in the national spotlight in the postseason last year. What was that like? Did anything change as far as, the way you went about your business? I'm sure that there was, obviously more requests and media availability and things like that. But overall, did you notice any major changes with being in the national spotlight last season?
I don't really think so. I think it was a credit to our guys and, again, our leadership, from the inside out on our football team of guys were in it for the right reasons. And so whether we were doing really well or not, that didn't change their approach. It didn't change how they, responded to one another. Yeah, I think it was, I think all of us appreciated and like that, growth and moving the program forward. But that's not why any of them did it, and credit their character. It didn't really change their approach and something that we kind of all expect of ourselves and each other. So,
Colin, we'll talk about Avery Johnson in just a second. We'd be remiss if we didn't in this part of the world, but it's Will Howard's team next year. Is Will Howard, do you think Will Howard's a pro? I mean, he looked like it last year. What do you think his ceiling is professionally if he comes out and repeats or even exceeds what he did a year ago?
I think he is obviously playing. He played the second half of last season at an extremely high level. The exciting part is I still think there's more in him. I think he thinks there's still more out there and more in him. We're just going to keep, digging and pushing that potential as far as we can. And does he have the ability to do so? I would say absolutely. But again, we just got to take it one day at a time and keep pushing things forward.
How about that development from Avery Johnson, the local kid here? Of course, we followed his high school career. What are you seeing so far from him as he's made his way up to K-State?
Yeah, I've been so impressed with just his work ethic from day one, his ability to process and his awareness of what's going on around him from a schematic standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, and how fast he's picked things up. Coming in semester, it's a lot. And he hasn't broke stride and really has put himself in a position to compete and be in the mix this fall.
So with Avery, he's a great example for us. One, he's here, so we know him, but he's a perfect example of a high school or like a teenager, basically, who enters like this level of celebrity that's taken to it. I mean, it's always been there. Like it was there but it's different now. How difficult do you think that is for guys? And we think like you that he's handled this very well, but there's a lot of guys in that situation. How difficult must that be to be an 18-year-old superstar like that in the current college athletics model?
Well, it ain't easy. That's for dang sure. I mean, you're exactly right. And growth is never a straight line. Like he is as great a start as he's gotten, as talented as he is, and as well as he has handled everything. I think for all of us coaches and supporters and fans included, you kind of start, expecting guys to be perfect because they are excelling, and that's not fair either. It's going to be a learning process, a growth process for him. And, I know his desire is there, his work ethic's there. His motives are great as far as being able to help and make sure he's giving as much as he's receiving in all the stuff. And so I'm just excited to watch him grow, honored that I have the privilege to again work with him and help him be the best he can be.
Colin, it was a pretty incredible NFL draft for the Wildcats with Felix Anudike-Uzomah going in the first round to the Chiefs, Julius Brents going to the Colts, and then, a couple of other players throughout the course of the draft. Talk a little bit about your thoughts on where these players landed and what overall that means to the future of the program, being able to know that you guys are developing what looks to be pretty quality professionals.
Well, it means a lot, and so proud of each one of those guys and the journey that each one of them have been on, and how they've handled it, and how they led and served their teammates when they were here, and being able to all of them go to their hometowns or relatively is pretty dang cool. It doesn't happen very often, and know that because of how they handle their business, and all of them will be very, very successful for a long time.
All right, Colin Klein, offensive coordinator for Kansas State. We've got you on because you guys are on the Catbacker Tour, stopping into Wichita today. Now, you won't be here, as I understand it. You've been out in Western Kansas, but the Catbacker Tour coming in tonight at the Stockyards. Chris Kleiman will be there. For people that haven't been to one of these, for K-State fans, what can people expect on the Catbacker Tour?
Well, it's a great time. It's a great time to kind of be able to interact and have some good conversation and fellowship there with some athletes, some coaches, some fans, and you'll get to hear kind of some of the behind the scenes state of the program, how things are going, where we're going. Get to probably have some good food, and Wyatt Thompson does a great job, and they are great events.
And it is at tonight, the Wichita Union Stockyards. It is free, so you can go in there. So right now, Colin, before we let you, the world of Colin Klein is what? Recruiting? You're on the road constantly, or is it more coaching or more recruiting right now?
Yes and yes. No, we're doing both. The players are on a little bit of a break right now, so we're trying to wrap up spring recruiting, and it's been a good cycle for us, and on the road right now, actually. So it's all good.
All right. Well, good luck. Go catch the next big fish. We appreciate it, Colin. Hey, thanks for joining us here. Let's do it again.
Hey, we will. Anytime. Thank you guys very much.
K-State offensive coordinator Colin Klein. Fantastic stuff there. Candid, honest, love it. Man, there's not anybody in the world that's not rooting for Colin Klein's success. We really appreciate that. Catbacker Tour tonight. K-State fans or just football fans out at the Stockyards here in Wichita. It is free to enter. You can buy food and drinks there. You can go support K-State football. A chance Chris Kleiman will be at that event. There you go. 869-1240. If you want to listen back, if you joined us late, a lot of good stuff in that interview. You can go to the Odyssey app and listen to it on demand. We'll be right back. Jacob and Tommy, more Sports Daily right after this. Tommy, what I appreciate more than anything, I think people that listen to this show understand, like, I just appreciate like an honest conversation, like we're just chatting it up, man. And Colin Klein was so good there. The things he talked about, his future, the future of this program, just sort of living in this moment. It's got to be like cloud nine stuff for him. I think about that all the time. Like, to be able to be a legend as a player somewhere, and he is like Mount Rushmore, I would guess, for most K-State fans. But then to be able to come back to that same place, right, and coach there and have an impact on, what could be in a best case scenario, the greatest era of Wildcat football. And I know, that's saying a lot, but I think they have the possibilities of that right now. And to be able to coach with somebody who, you played for Bill Snyder, which is unique, right? Nobody like him, but at least like at a value system and some of those things, to be able to also be a part of that as a coach. So you get to be a superstar player, and now you get to be this superstar coach who, by the way, everybody in the country wants to be a part of. That's awesome. That's got to be so cool to be able to do that on two fronts.
I've got a lot of respect for Colin Klein and not only the football player that he was. I mean, he was so much fun to watch. There's a reason why he was being considered for a Heisman, because he was incredible. It wasn't just that, and that's not, the only reason why I've got a lot of respect for him, but just the kind of character that he has, the kind of guy that he is. And you know what? The other thing too is that in a world today that is so ambition driven, money driven, all of that.
Sure.
He is in a position right now where he made the decision that he wanted to stay where he was because that was the best situation for him and his family and for his career. And, he mentioned having the ambition to be a head coach someday. And I have no doubt in my mind that he will be. And there will be a payday, and there already has been a payday for him to stay at K-State. So that's a part of it. But, just being present in the moment, in the location where he's at right now, that's so cool.
It can be both. It can be both. It can be both that and a good business decision, which it is, by the way, because if Will Howard develops, he'll be right there for any job that he wants, right? He'll be a candidate everywhere if Will Howard develops. And so you have that security there. And I get it. And I always appreciate this too. I have a great appreciation for just enjoying what you have now. Like, it's interesting to just watch people do that, because I would say that's the minority, and it's the minority, right? Of it's when you get to like highly successful people, not to just always take the best offer, because that's hard to do, right? Like, we all experience that to some degree, but I think we don't see it as much in sports as we do in regular life. There's all kinds of people who turn down more lucrative offers somewhere else to stay where they're at because they're happy. We do that in regular life all the time. Yeah. But in sports, you don't see it as much, right? Because everything's amplified so much, right? And it's cool to see that. I love when we do see that. I think it's why we have so much reverence for Bill Self, right? Why we had so much reverence for Bill Snyder. Maybe that will reach that point now with this new deal for Chris Kleiman. But, we see that stuff, and it's awesome, and I love it. And he's a really interesting person. Go back and listen to that interview if you didn't, because it's an honest conversation. Like, there's no beat around the bush or anything. It's great.
I've always believed, and I think I've said it multiple times in my life when I've had decisions to make that are career oriented, that you can't put a price tag on peace of mind. And I try to live my life that way. You cannot put a price tag on peace of mind. And so that's kind of I think that's the mentality that Colin Klein has, right now, being able to stay in a location where he knows that he's revered, where he knows that he's working alongside a head coach in Chris Kleiman that has built a culture there. Definitely seems that, all of that work is bearing fruit and continues to do that. And so my hat's off to him. A ton of respect for Colin Klein.
Yeah, it's been really, really cool to see his success there line up, with the most recent success, because they needed it, right? They needed a little infusion in the offense, and he's provided it. And it all comes down to developing quarterbacks. Now, don't get me wrong. There is a boatload of pressure in Manhattan too, and we didn't have a chance to talk about this, and maybe we should have. But there is a ton of pressure now on Chris Kleiman, on Will Howard, on Colin Klein, on that team to, they don't have to repeat as Big 12 champions, I don't think, but they have to repeat as being close or being competitive in that, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, they got to win a Big 12 title when you have the defending national runner-up back, and Texas and Oklahoma are still there, plus all these other teams they've thrown into the league now this super year. Like, it's not that as much as you just can't see regression, right? And so,
right,
there's a lot of pressure on that, and there's a lot of pressure on Klein individually, because he turned down, by some reports, some pretty compelling offers to stick around. Which, again, I applaud. I tip my cap to, because I don't think that's always the easiest thing to do. But he did it. Very cool. K-State, again, the Catbacker Tour rolling through Wichita. It is that season, right? It's fundraising season. And we had the Barnstormer Tour for KU. Recently, I helped KU with, they've got a round ball charity classic to help some cancer patients, some kids that they've got coming up this time of year. Happy to help them and our pal Brian Haney with that. But it is that time of year. So if you're a college sports fan, you get a chance now to mingle a little bit with some of your favorite athletes. That's another cool thing that I love about college athletics too, is that stuff intertwines with what feels at times like a professional environment.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to do some of those events for KU. You mentioned the Round Ball Charity Classic that Brian Haney works so hard on, Jayhawk Roundup, and different things like that. It's always so much fun. And I know that K-State, obviously, the Catbackers Tour going on now. It's really great when you got this time of year where you can get into the communities that really support you. And that's what the one thing, and I'll be the first to admit, like, I'm not a K-State guy, didn't go to K-State, but I've got a lot of friends that did go to K-State. I grew up in a small farm town that was very, very K-State oriented. And the one thing that K-State has always been very, very good at is getting into those small farming communities, because those fans are so passionate. And so, you mentioned Colin Klein out in Western Kansas doing some of the Catbacker tours and all of that. Really, really, really passionate fans out there.
Everybody's a passionate fan. It's I'm fans of all three of the schools here, which is a great place to be, right? Because for me, like, you can stir the pot in all three places. It's as much fun to do that as much as it is to, but I root for all of them equally. Like, people, it's fine. Like, we get emails and calls all the time of people claiming that we have some allegiance or bias. I don't. I mean, I can't speak for everybody. I want them all to be as awesome as they can possibly be, because it makes our job more fun. My favorite thing out of that interview, by the way, progress is never a straight line, or something to that effect. That's good stuff. Because it's not. And Will Howard is they should make that into a poster and put Will Howard's face right on the front, right? And I think that quote from Klein was in reference to Avery Johnson, but man, it's Will Howard. Progress is never a straight line. Think about his path to this point.
It wasn't that long ago that K-State fans never wanted to see him again. Like, get him off the football field.
I get it. I get it. And look, we were there too, and we're not talking about Will Howard as a person. We're talking about as a football player, because it was, Skylar Thompson was so good and had developed. Skylar Thompson's very similar, by the way. You could put that poster and put his face on there too. I mean, that is, to me, one of the things that I think is the most interesting piece of what K-State is building right now, is that they are becoming a quarterback university. And I just can't imagine, if you could pick any other thing like on the field to do well, like, that's what you want to do, right? And now you've had back-to-back guys, Skylar Thompson and now Will Howard. Okay. Back-to-back guys who I will be predictive in the fact, I think Will Howard will be an NFL quarterback, and he's going to get drafted. I think he's going to have a great year. I don't know what they've got at wide receiver, and we didn't get into the X's and O's with Colin Klein. Maybe we can do that another time, but it's just so appetizing. And then behind him, you have the pedigree guy, right? Avery Johnson, who has handled everything as well as you can handle it. He's a celebrity, Tommy. Like, he's a superstar right now and has been for 2 years, maybe even 3 years. And he keeps handling his business. It was good to hear Colin Klein chime in on that too. You can go back and listen on the Odyssey app. We're going to come back. More Sports Daily. We can get a little more into LeBron. LeBron's always good, right? LeBron's always good conversation. His career is continuing. There's some other interesting topics. Lauren Hibbs is a coach of the year, which is an interesting situation for Wichita State here again. Coming up, we also have Hunter Dozier is out. The OTAs are starting up. A lot to get to here. Your calls on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. You can leave your comments on our video stream as well. Jacob and Tommy will be right back.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Shout out to Hubby's Helmets on Twitter. I think I showed this, Tommy. I know he's looking right now. But check this out. We got Cowboys on one side, Sports Radio, KFH. Matches the logo up there. Pretty cool, right?
I mean,
Pretty cool.
it's salt in the wound right now. I mean, you showed it one other time. You know, I mentioned I didn't get one. And now you're showing it again. Like, you're just rubbing it in.
Listen, I just know that the great listener, viewer who sent that is currently watching. So I appropriately say thank you. That's all it is. No offense there. No offense there. All right. So Wichita State baseball gets started in the conference tournament today. It will happen scheduled for 6:30. We'll see what time. They do have a natural break, so I don't think it'll get a push tremendous amount if it gets pushed. By the way, you'll hear it. Pregame coverage beginning at 6:10 tonight. So conference awards come out. Brock Rodden gets American Athletic Conference Player of the Year. He was the preseason Player of the Year. Cool stuff there. And Lauren Hibbs gets named Coach of the Year. Congratulations to Lauren Hibbs on that honor. I think we would all say that this year has gone better than most expected. And you know, it started off with some turmoil, with some turbulence when Eric Wedge was let go. So Lauren Hibbs comes in, all the experience he has. We've asked Kevin Saul this directly. We don't know the answer to this. Wouldn't expect Kevin Saul to give us an exact answer on this, but Lauren Hibbs' future is interesting. It's you know, he's Coach of the Year now, and there are such obvious parallels to the situation Wichita State was in with Isaac Brown. And I am still an advocate of Wichita State making the proper decision there with Isaac Brown. It did not work out for whatever reason, and now Wichita State has moved on. Basketball and baseball are not the same thing. Let's not pretend like they are. And this is an interesting scenario. And what I don't know on this, and there's no way to find this out, we'll see, time will tell, is if Lauren Hibbs wants this job long-term. But, you know, there are decisions that have to be made that'll be really interesting. And, you know, you have to have, and we have not, like, I haven't talked to the players about this kind of stuff. Like, there are conversations that have to happen and you go through in these situations. What I do know is I've never heard one person ever publicly, behind the scenes, whatever, that hasn't said very positive things about Lauren Hibbs, kind of person he is, kind of coach he is, whatever. Everybody, including his former bosses, have called him such basically a blessing to have that experience on the bench there at Wichita State. So he wins Coach of the Year in the conference. I would say, Tommy, you know, without, you know, because it's like, again, the level and the depth of knowledge on that process and that search is not high enough for me. So just at the surface, right? He's a Kansas guy. He's a Wichita State alum. And I would say that it makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah. If he wants the job, give him the job. I mean, I really honestly feel that way. And, you know, I had a conversation on Twitter yesterday about that after he was named the American Conference Coach of the Year. You know, where I think that there is a little bit of PTSD after the Isaac Brown situation, right? You know, and this thought of, you know, hey, maybe it'd be good to do a national search for a new coach. Okay, well, it's kind of apples and oranges because Lauren Hibbs has 30 years of head coaching experience prior to this job, where Isaac Brown didn't have any. So I understand the fear there. I understand the hesitation there from the Shocker fan base, because it, you know, seems like history is repeating itself a little bit, where you've got an interim coach doing an incredible job. The team rallies around that person. They go to the postseason, you know, and then you think, okay, well, you know, it just makes sense to give him the job permanently. It is a different situation. Lauren Hibbs has so many more qualifications than Isaac Brown ever had on the basketball court. So I think that at that point you can separate, those two situations because they're not similar, at all. And so I really feel like if Lauren Hibbs has the desire to coach full time permanently, I think you go ahead and give him the job.
I do think they're similar in some ways. I think they're similar in that they stabilized a program in some turmoil. I think that both of those men took over a program when the head man was let go in some controversy. I think that matters, and I think that that's similar. What I don't know, and by the way, I don't think it was an wildly unsuccessful tenure or anything for Isaac Brown. I think he did a fine job. I think it was borderline on whether he should have the job or not. Like, it was close. I think what ultimately cost Isaac Brown was everything off the court and, some of the things that go into being a head coach at a major university, and as far as, the NIL world and recruiting and all that kind of stuff. That's where, because Lauren Hibbs hasn't been a coach during that, a head coach. And that's the part, again, I don't know. Like, that's what makes it tricky, right? If we're just talking about how he did with a group of players this year and taking over a rocky situation, soaring, A+, passes with flying colors, boom. But that's not everything. And that's what we learned with the Isaac Brown situation. It's not all about what he did this year with those players. Can he recruit at the level of the players that are there currently? That'd be my top question, right? We don't know the answer. We don't know the answer to that. It's a different world. What he did for 30 years is not the same as what happens now. It's just not. Just like Isaac Brown. Recruiting when Isaac Brown was coming up is not the same now as it was when it was you could just go find the best players and coach them. It's more than that now. I mean, that's the world we live in. So that's what makes it like, I'm trying to like learn lessons in all this of like, if somebody's there that is more qualified, I would imagine that Wichita State feels a greater obligation now to entertain. Like, let's just, and again, I'm not saying this is true. I have no inside information. This is absolutely a hypothetical situation. Please accept this disclaimer. But let's say Kevin Hooper was interested in the job. You don't think they ought to talk to Kevin Hooper?
I think that Kevin Hooper definitely has, qualifications to be the head coach for Wichita State baseball, but I'm not convinced that he's a better option than what they currently have on the bench right now. I mean, let me lay out this situation here in this way. You do a nationwide search, let's say, and you're trying to find a head coach nationally that has the accolades, that has the experience, that has the years of developing talent, on-field coaching, all of that. You want to tell me that there are more qualified candidates out there than Lauren Hibbs? Because I'm not sure that there is, that would be interested in going and coaching at Wichita State. What I don't want to have happen is I don't want Wichita State to cut off their nose to spite their face because of what happened with basketball. And say, you know what, we're not even gonna consider Lauren Hibbs because we learned our lesson with the Isaac Brown situation. We're gonna go and look, nationally. They can't do that because they've got somebody. And you know what? I don't know if it's Kevin Hooper. I don't know if there's somebody else that's out there, that might be a better choice. I don't know that. But what I do know is that you have to be very careful because you've got somebody who is high quality, high class, high character, a damn good coach that's sitting on the bench right now that has led the Shockers to a third place seeding in the American Conference tournament when I don't think anybody thought that they would be at this point this season.
No.
I think that you have to be able to balance it. You can't just go all in and say Lauren Hibbs is the guy. I think you have to be thoughtful in that. But I also do think that you have to make sure that you're not potentially chasing away your best opportunity for a permanent head coach.
I hope that nobody misunderstands this conversation, by the way. I root for Lauren Hibbs to get this job. I want everybody to know that. Just like at an observational level, I want Lauren Hibbs to get the job because I think he's earned it. But let's just say they lose their first two games in the conference tournament, Tommy. They're 30-25 on the year. 30-25. I mean, it's not like when Isaac Brown got it, they won the league, right? And it was a weird year. Like I am with you on this. Treat this totally separately. Even though there is
Completely
a
different
similarity, you have to treat this differently. Number one, because college baseball and college basketball are two very different things. And number two, because that's not fair to either guy, right? That's not fair to lump either situation in together because they're unique. I mean, they're unique. They are.
Yeah, it's
They're,
not fair to Lauren Hibbs to judge him based on what happened with Isaac Brown, right?
and it's not, and it's not fair to look at Isaac Brown's situation, I don't think, and say, oh, yep, that was the wrong decision because they didn't X, Y, Z. No, I think it was the right decision. Okay. I think it was the right decision. So it didn't work out ultimately, but that doesn't make it the right. That doesn't not make it the right decision in that very moment. They could have hired anybody that didn't do well. And it was Isaac Brown did well. Like he didn't not
Right.
do well.
I also don't think that you can take their record. Again, let's go back and say that they lose, early and get bounced in the conference tourney, and they've got a 30-25 record in the season. I don't think you can view that record in a bubble by itself, and say, oh, that's couple games over 500. We expect more. We need a coach that can do more than that, because I don't think that there were many people that thought that they would win 30 games this season with all the drama that happened before the season even started. Eric Wedge out, Lauren Hibbs in, not sure how the team was going to respond to all of that. So I think that it's, we were talking in the middle to end of March about the Shockers in first place in the conference, right? And so I think that those are things that all need to be taken into consideration. I don't think that you can just look at the overall final record as the end all be all of the reason why you should or shouldn't hire Lauren Hibbs.
No, I don't either. They were picked 5th preseason in the league. So, I mean, take that for what it's worth. Not that preseason polls mean a whole lot, but they exceeded the expectation for sure. I mean, at least they did for us. And just listen to Lauren Hibbs talk, right. Be around him at any point and you're impressed, right? Like, so the character is there that we know Kevin Saul values. They won at a level I think that's absolutely acceptable this year. He's an alum, which matters greatly, and he navigated a pretty tumultuous time. The only thing we don't know is the recruiting level. I mean, that's it. That's all we do. And maybe with conversations with players and other people, Wichita State knows that and we don't, right? You could just talk to the players that are there and say, how much did Lauren Hibbs, have to do with you coming here? Like, you can have conversations and figure that stuff out. But it is interesting. It's interesting to see that award come. And it was just like, that's awesome. Good for him. But man, we've been here before. It feels like a little bit. We'll see. Shockers play today. You'll hear him today. We think they've got a shot here. Okay. They've pitched enough, I think, in this season, and they have enough depth there and versatility that we think they've got a chance in this tournament. And it doesn't always feel that way. So we're really, really excited about it. Good luck to the Shockers. Good luck to Lauren Hibbs and that entire team. And congrats, by the way, again, to Brock Rodden for basically living up to the hype. Preseason player of the year, was named the player of the year. He was fantastic this year. Just phenomenal player. By the way, that pregame coverage again starts at 6:10. All right, Tommy, let's jump back a little bit here. Before we switch topics, let's go back to the NBA Finals, because we were a little abbreviated there in the first hour, and a topic that I do think is fascinating with the Lakers' future. Denver's future, right, is pretty simple. They were fantastic. Again, they've been fantastic all postseason long. They are finding all kinds of different ways to win games. They have the best player remaining in the playoffs, and Denver will be favored no matter who they play, most likely Miami in that series. They have that final hurdle to jump, and we'll talk much more about them as we move forward because we'll have time. The Lakers, however, are interesting. It all hinders around LeBron James at the moment, who, after the game last night, if you didn't hear it, seemed very unclear, uncertain of his future. And I don't think that's posturing. I don't think that's grandstanding. I think that was pretty raw honesty in a moment of, and it was the right time to ask that question too. By the way, if anybody thinks, oh, you shouldn't ask him right after a loss, yes, you should, because that's when you're going to get the most real answer. You're going to get the most real answer when that wound of losing and being swept is the most raw, because that's when I think you have the most questions about what you want to do. So absolutely. And I applaud LeBron James for answering it honestly too, by the way. I think he was very real with people. Like, man, I don't know. I don't know what to do right now. Because I think in that moment, and he said it, like, it's winning championships. And it really does. It doesn't become a question of, can LeBron still get it done? Of course he can. He's still one of the top 15, 10 players in the NBA. He's incredible at his age. It becomes a question to me of, can the Lakers win a title next year? And then the question is going to be, does he want to try to play with his son? But we're not there yet. So for next year, it becomes a question of, can the Lakers win a title? Can, with this version of the Lakers, with LeBron and maybe Anthony Davis and Ham and some of these role players, I believe they'll have Austin Reeves another year. Hachimura seemed to be a bit of a revelation. And they did some really nice things with that roster. Can they add enough in an off season to go get one? I think that they probably can. I don't know whether that's through going to find some free agents that might come in on the minimum. I don't know if LeBron and Anthony Davis still have that kind of sway, right? Like, can we really, at our advanced ages, convince big-time players to come here? That doesn't always work out anyway. Or if they simply just need to hit, right? You got to hit in the draft. You got to hit in free agency with young players, maybe that people don't really know about, just like they did at the trade deadline. Is that enough to surpass Denver? Yeah, I think it probably is. They played all 4 of those games ultra tight.
I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, I think that they've got,
sure.
They've got this opportunity in place to be able to do that. I just don't know. I don't know who those pieces are, and you've like, there are names that stand out to me as game changers that can be added onto any team, and they immediately become credible. They immediately become teams that you look at like, okay, well, that is going to change the overall trajectory of whatever team that they join. I don't know if any of those players are going to be joining the Lakers, so I think that it would have to be something where, like, to your point, I don't disagree with you, where maybe it's a little bit more of a younger guy that is ready to take the next step that can then, contribute in a certain way. I just wonder how well young talent ready to make the next step in their career and, go forward and elevate their career will mesh with LeBron and Anthony Davis. I don't know the answer to that. Is there a scenario where the Lakers can add enough pieces as to where LeBron doesn't have to be the focal point? And I don't know. I don't know if LeBron wants to be the focal point or feels like he has to be the focal point. So I don't exactly know what that direction is, but it's going to make for a really an interesting offseason as far as, because I think you and I are both in agreement. He's coming back. Like, he's going to play next season. I don't have any doubt in my mind, on that. I just wonder, what can the Lakers do to be able to get them over the hump? Because right now, Denver is showing themselves as absolutely dominant in the West. And I don't know if little additions here and there or little changes here and there with the Lakers will be enough to get them over the hump with the amount of talent that Denver has, or if it's going to take a little bit more of a bigger change in the roster makeup for the Lakers for them to be able to get over that hump.
I don't think they can afford a bigger change. No, I don't think LeBron has to be the centerpiece, but I think he's good enough to be, if that's what they need. I don't think they can like blow it up and do it. I think it is like this, and what can they add to it? And yeah,
Right.
It's a question. I mean, it is a question, but I think it's possible. And if you're LeBron trying to make that decision, that's really all that matters in the decision, right? Is it possible? Would it be possible for us to win a title next year? Because if it's not, and I totally get it. If I'm him at, his ability and what he's accomplished and done, if I'm not winning a championship next year, I have absolutely no interest in going through this grind at 38 years old. And I want to just go be a dad. Like, I get that and totally respect it and agree with it, quite frankly. It's championship or bust. I mean, that's all it is. They didn't get it last night. He's clearly upset. He's given you an honest answer. Let's see what it is. Can they? I think that they can. I think they got to probably get it pretty close to perfect this offseason to do it. And then they've got to have good fortune with health. I'd put Anthony Davis on ice, right? And just sort of try to navigate through. Miami is showing us, and the Lakers to some degree. I think they're different, but Miami's showing us you can kind of coast it in the regular season as long as the NBA continues to accept that as a thing, which I think is a problem for the league, but whatever, it works. Then yeah, they have a chance. They got to get it right in the offseason. And I don't know what they're working with. I have no idea, but they got to get it right. But yes, I think there's still enough left in LeBron James and Anthony Davis to make another run. And then after next offseason, when he's a free agent, then he can make the decision based on his kid. It becomes much easier. Or he can say, you know what, enough of this. I just want to watch my kids play basketball. I'm tired of this. I don't want to do it anymore. It's a lifestyle I couldn't. I mean, 20 years being on the road that much, when the spotlight's always on you, and you like LeBron's never going to be able to just go play basketball, right? Anytime there's anything interesting happening, he's going to get asked about it. He's whether he wants to be or not, he's a mouthpiece for the league. I think that he has probably learned some hard lessons in that over his career, where taking stances and making proclamations isn't as simple as it seems, because you're always going to make somebody angry, even if that's not your intention. He's had to live that his entire career for 20 years. That's exhausting. He doesn't need that. I mean, he's into movies now. Like, his kids are great at basketball, all this stuff. Like, he doesn't need that stuff. It's really about winning championships and like the nostalgia of everything. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what LeBron James does. I think he'll be back. I think he'll come back. I think he'll play next year, and I think the Lakers will be pretty competitive. What do you think? 869-1240 is the number to call. You can also leave us your comments on our video stream. We got a couple people chiming in there as well. Always appreciate that conversation. Hunter Dozier is out, and the OTAs have started. A couple more things to get through here today on Sports Daily. We'll take a quick break. We'll come right back. We'll get it done.
commercials are over.
Yo, I haven't got all day.
869-1240.
Time to get busy.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
Turn a loss into a win with BetMGM, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Place a one-game parlay wager with at least 4 legs on any MLB game. If all legs of the parlay hit but one, you'll get your stake back in bonus bets up to $25. Just log into your account, download the app, and sign up with BetMGM to get started. Then opt into the one-game parlay insurance promotion to receive up to $25 back in bonus bets if your parlay with 4 legs or more loses by just 1 leg. Only at BetMGM, the best place to bet on baseball. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Kansas only. New and existing customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets. Bonus bets expire 7 days from issuance. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Major League Baseball in full swing. The Royals make their first critical decision of the year. Not an easy one, I'm certain, for them to make, but Hunter Dozier designated for assignment, Tommy.
Good. It needed to be done. I mean, Hunter Dozier, I'm sure he's a nice guy. I don't know him, but man, he was garbage, absolute garbage. And his slash line, just so you know, ever since Hunter Dozier signed his contract back in 2020, his slash line, 228, 344, 392. And he had a 27% strikeout rate. I mean, 27% of the time going up to the plate and striking out. And you would think, okay, well, maybe he's not a great hitter, but, if he could back it up defensively, maybe there can be value there. Nope, didn't really back it up defensively either. Played first base, third base, right field, never really was an incredible defender. And so while it's a tough decision for the Royals, they kept trotting him out there, I think hoping that, he would live up to that contract. Never did. And so, yeah, it's a tough decision. Nobody's going to claim him on waivers because, he makes so much money. So, I think that the Royals, I think it's pretty clear they're willing to pay him to not play for them, if that tells you anything about the way that, his career has gone with Kansas City.
The year before that contract was signed, 26 home runs, hit 279.
Yeah.
Struck out too much, but, the defensive versatility, while, not like Gold Glove caliber, the versatility is handy. Like, it wasn't an outrageous contract based on that year's performance. And there really wasn't, he had the injury early on, so there wasn't a huge track record. He had the season before where things didn't go very well. And then it regressed back to more of that all the way through. It's tough. The Royals, we hammer them for not spending any money. And then when they do, people get annoyed at it. And it's because they haven't done it well. Like, I'm not saying that's unwarranted. But, you go back to a lot of the Alex Gordon mega contract when they gave it to him. He didn't live up to that. This one, you can look at Whit Merrifield. A lot of people had a problem with that, not trading him. I think with Dozier, what were they supposed to do? Just let him walk to free agency? Yes. The answer to that, by the way, is yes. Obviously.
Yeah, that's the answer.
Now, though, in retrospect, I'm saying at the time, right? You don't have a lot going for you. You've got this homegrown player who just had an incredible year. And it's not like the deal was just absurdly large.
Right.
But by the Royals standard, it sort of is, right? Like, when you don't have, all the money in the world, clearly, a 4-year, $25 million deal. Like, everyone's talking about this horrible, oh my God, that's just awful. This terrible contract. It was a 4-year, $25 million deal. Like, it was fine.
I don't blame the Royals for this. They felt like, based on what Dozier did in 2019 and 2020, that he was worth this contract. And it's Hunter Dozier. He didn't live up to it. I mentioned his slash line overall during his tenure with the Royals. By the way, his slash line this season in 91 plate appearances, 183, 253, 305, and a career worse 32% strikeout rate. The dude was striking out a third of the time he was coming to bat. And so, in a season where the Royals have been incredibly up and down offensively. Really, the main player that was down and stayed down is Hunter Dozier. And so you've got Nicky Lopez coming off the injured list. You have to make a space for him. I'd rather have Nicky Lopez and his defense than Hunter Dozier going to the plate and striking out 1 in every 3 times.
They just haven't been able to get it right on contracts or really anything, like, for a while. And again, 4-year, $25 million deals. If Dozier repeats the performance, it looks like a fantastic signing, right? But it didn't. And so it's not that, and I don't think that money has hamstrung them by any means, but what it did for 2 years that's annoyed people is it's blocked other players. That's what they're doing now. They're eliminating that. And I don't know, like, I wish I had some better news for you, Royals fans. Like, it stinks that didn't work out, because he was a fun player to watch that year. He was awesome. And you root for the guys that come up through your system. Of course you do. And it didn't work. And that's just, now the key is, okay, who steps into that spot and what are the long-term pieces? I honestly, outside of Bobby Witt Jr., I don't know what the long-term pieces are. I like Nicky Lopez. I think he's handy. I'd like to see him stick around, but there just aren't many. And it just continues to look more and more like, and they're going to have to totally redo this thing again. And I don't, outside of spending a bunch of money in free agency, there's really no way around it. But let's not get mad at the Royals for spending money, though, because a 4-year, $25 million deal doesn't even sniff what it would take to get even a mediocre free agent with the current economics of baseball. To get a truly impactful player, you're going to spend like $25 million in 1 year, pretty much. So it's
and I think
the
that
finances are what they are.
I think that they knew after the season that Dozier had when he hit the 26 home runs and all of that in 2019. I think they had this thought of, okay, we know he's got some power in his bat. We know he strikes out too much. And so that's going to drive his value down, so we can get him, a power bat in their minds at the time, a power bat that, he's never going to hit for average. He's going to strike out too much. He's mediocre defensively, but he's got some pop in his bat. If we can work on the strikeouts a little bit, 4 years, $25 million, that seems to be a pretty good investment. So at the time, and I remember thinking when they signed him, okay, I don't have an issue with this contract. He strikes out too much, but at least they've got some power, in his bat. And remember, at the time, they also had guys like Jorge Soler and Salvi and other guys that could hit home runs, and Dozier kind of fit, in that category as well. He was never able to get the strikeout thing taken care of or improved, and the power in his bat dipped as well. In those 91 plate appearances this season, 2 home runs, so, and he was never able to, replicate what he did in 2019. And so that's not, in my opinion, on the shoulders of the Royals necessarily. You would have liked to see maybe the coaching try to find ways, and I'm sure that they did try to find ways in improving that, the hitting coach and all of that, trying to improve, all of that. But ultimately, I think that's on Dozier's shoulders.
Well, of course it is. It is. And the Royals just have to move on and continue to try to, develop players from within for a minute. And we'll see as they have ballpark talks, when is the point where they just have to go invest outside the organization to try and make it better with, somebody more, exciting than Franmil Reyes, right? Like you're just going to have to.
Or Carlos Santana last season. Like,
Carlos
let's
Santana
actually
was handy. He brought back some trade value. I won't totally discount that. There is some value in bringing those guys in, hoping they get hot, and trading them. I do think that's not a bad, but you gotta get it right in the trades.
Yeah,
like that's the thing. Like it's the evaluational tools have not been at a premium in recent years, and we'll see. But Hunter Dozier, just generation of Royals is gone, and there may be a lot of fans that are like, okay. Like that needed to happen. So that did happen. That happened yesterday. 869-1240 is the number on the IHOP hotline for you. Let's give something away here, Jad. Let's give away, I don't know. Let's give away something to HTO. Let's do 2 iced tea cards. 2 free iced teas. You can go west or east to HTO. Go get a couple of those. Take a friend. We'll do that to our first caller. 869-1240 on the IHOP hotline. We're going to come back and talk about if there's anything we need to care about with the OTAs and the Chiefs in the NFL. We'll do it. The Sports Daily rolls forward. Welcome back in, everybody. Congratulations to Tyler from Wichita on winning some HTO iced tea, East or West. We've got 2 locations for you there that you can go check out and enjoy it on us. Go inside. You can try all the flavors for free, by the way.
You guys got to be gearing up for a busy time of year, right? Getting warmer outside.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of folks are going to be drinking some iced tea, I would think.
When the sun comes out, things get very busy, and that's good. That's what we're ready for that. I like that time of year. Things move quickly. We've got all kinds of fun stuff happening. There's some new for those that are, and I didn't realize that this happened, Tommy. I think social media has something to do with this. Iced coffee is like a big deal now. I'm one more reason why I'm an old soul. Like, I drink black coffee in the morning. That's what I drink. And I do drink HTO black coffee. I get it in a bag and bring it home and make it. It's awesome. But iced coffee is the deal, right? It's the big deal. And I think there's like 5 or 6. There's a bunch of new iced coffee coming on Memorial Day. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but it's coming on Memorial Day. So stay tuned for that. It'll be cool. People that like iced coffee will like that. But yeah, it's ramping up. Sun comes out, we're in business. All right, here's my thing with OTAs. I don't really understand them. Like, I don't pretend to go through like, oh, they collectively bargained this and this is what they're allowed to do and blah, 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 blah. Are the rookies there? Do we know that?
I think so. I believe so.
If the rookies are there, I'm interested, right? If they're there, I'm interested. Richie James is there. He's not a rookie, but like, that's what I'm interested in at this point in off-season workouts, because without contact, which there isn't in OTAs, they're voluntary. It's just like 7-on-7, 9-on-7, that kind of stuff. So even like the new offensive lineman or the new defensive lineman, whether they're free agents or draft picks, I'm like, okay. Like, about the only thing I'm interested in is Mahomes and his development with new receivers. That's pretty much it for me. Like, stay healthy and get, some rapport with Patrick Mahomes going with new receivers in the room. What does that look like? Because otherwise, I don't know that there's a lot they're going to get done right now. They don't have a lot that will change or a lot that will, need 7-on-7 work, right? Maybe that's somebody, a great football brain could educate me on this. If we had Paul Savage here, who's coached the lines, he could let me know. But like, non-contact drills don't seem that beneficial to me for linemen. So what do the receivers look like? That's about it for me.
I'm sure that there is a good amount of value that the players find in OTAs and that the coaches find in OTAs. I'm not sure there's a whole lot of value for what you and I do when it comes to talking about OTAs. I think that once we get into training camp and then the preseason, then at that point, the conversations start to ramp up some. But, right now I'm keeping, I don't know, kind of an eye on OTAs and the development. Like, just if there's anything noteworthy coming out from Kansas City, then I'll read it and pay attention to it. But I just don't know if there's really a whole lot to be able to analyze right now, at least from our perspective on what the Chiefs are doing in OTAs.
Who cares about anything but what we care about, though? Like, why, if it's not important to us, like, who's,
hey, you said it, not me.
Yeah. Did you think it? It's fun. I get it. Like, everything is theater in the NFL. Like, oh, look who's arrived. So-and-so arrives at OTAs. Yeah. All right. Like, I don't care. I want to know who's going to help Patrick Mahomes at the wide receiver position this year. And then when we get to contact, and again, I am sure that coaching staff gets a tremendous amount of value out of OTAs. It's just hard to consume it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's hard as a fan,
and I want to see
May 23rd to be like, oh, let's look for this today.
And whether it's in OTAs or in training camp or whatever it is, like, going back to the receiver conversation, I want to see the development of Kadarius Toney. I want to see the development of Richie James. I want to see the development of Justin Ross, who is somebody that the Chiefs have spoken highly of for a long time. And can he take that next step to be a viable receiver in the NFL? Those are things, and I don't know if they're going to be accomplished during OTAs, and we'll be able to have a good idea of that anytime soon, or if we're looking more at like the training camp path and at that time during the off season, when we can actually be able to break that down, analyze it, and figure out, exactly the way the wide receiver room is going to pan out.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, that's the one. Training camp, I do think, is very valuable. Like, training camp's different. I think, than OTAs. OTAs are just this confusing thing that it's like the filler between, and I know there's different phases of them now, but it's like this filler between the draft and training camp. Like, what could we get people excited for? We don't do this
Right.
in other sports, right? Like, we don't like care about this stuff. It's theater. It's constantly theater in the NFL. They do a
It
great job
reminds
of
me a
trying to
little
make us
bit
care.
reminds me just a little bit of like the excitement in baseball when pitchers and catchers report, like it's not spring training yet,
Right.
but the pitchers and catchers report. And so it's like the next step in the off season. I think that's really what OTAs, break down to for me. And, there are some other storylines around the NFL that are not OTA related. Like, the owners are meeting with Roger Goodell talking about rule changes and some of these other things that, are being talked about and voted on. Austin Eckler looks like he's going to get a new contract to stay with the Chargers. I don't know if you saw this. Brandon McManus is being released by the Broncos, so they will be looking for a new kicker. So there's a couple of other things that are floating around out there right now that aren't OTA related that are at least, worthy of conversation in the NFL.
So Eckler, that's interesting. I hadn't seen that until you just said it. He basically changed his mind and got a little bit of a raise. Good for him. That's I feel for the running backs. Their shelf life is short. I never have a problem with them, and they're trying to get as much as they can as fast as they can because they're quickly cast to the side anyway. So good for Austin Eckler. I like
probably
that
better
position.
than hitting the open market. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's going to hit the open market next season. His will be interesting. This was probably best for him, I think. And I don't know what he's making this year, but that's certainly not good news for the Chiefs. Austin Eckler will make the Chargers better. There are situations. Do we have like Dalvin Cook is out there as somebody who probably isn't going to be playing for the Vikings? We don't think. So where might he go? Dallas Cowboys. What about Derrick Henry? What is Derrick Henry going to do? As of now, right? He's still a Titan at the moment. But somebody will want Derrick Henry, wouldn't they? He'd be handy for a lot of teams.
Where's Ezekiel Elliott going?
Dallas Cowboys. Zeke, I don't know. Zeke and Derrick Henry, I'm not saying, I'm not trying to compare their careers, although I think they're both really good, like maybe Hall of Fame caliber. Not sure Zeke is, but when he was at his prime, he was definitely at that level. Derrick Henry for sure is. They're handy for somebody, right? Like Buffalo. You don't think either one of those teams could help Buffalo right now? You don't think either one of those guys could help, quite frankly, the Chiefs right now? Like there are good teams that could use those services well, I think. Dalvin Cook's a little bit different. Dalvin Cook, and maybe he's more like Derrick Henry than Zeke. Zeke feels like a free agent. I'm going to come in, and when you need me to gain 3 yards, I'm going to gain 3 yards. Like no matter what, that's what I'll do for you, which has value. Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook probably still seen a little bit more as we could probably give these guys, 20 carries a game type guys. So their cases are interesting, but there are teams that need them. I mean, there are teams that need that on the roster.
Don't you think that the longer that this drags out with wide receivers in general, because we haven't seen really any movement with free agent wide receiver or running backs, free agent running backs. Don't you think the longer that this drags on with the running back position, that is in favor of the teams, right? Like not the players. Like we're going to see later and later in the offseason, these players are going to want to find a home. And if they're not being signed right away, maybe they'll be able to, the teams will be able to get more of a discount on them.
Desperation makes teams do things like, look, I'll put it to you this way. If Ronald Jones can continue to find jobs in the NFL, Zeke Elliott, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, don't like, let's not even have the conversation. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that. And I know cost has something to do with it, but if you're going to try and tell me none of those guys are still valuable in the league, I just would counter with you've never watched football before. Like you're not actually watching football if you don't think those guys have value. Now, what that value is the source of debate, right? How much value is there in that? But if we're going to try to have the conversation that those guys don't make football teams better, you just got to miss me with that conversation because I think it's insane. what's the price tag? Fine. Let's have that conversation. But whether or not those guys make teams better, that's not even a conversation. Of course they do. Of course they do. Let me put it to you this way. 2 out of those 3 guys, I would take over Isaiah Pacheco right now. If all things were equal for this season, right? And you told me that the Chiefs could either give Isaiah Pacheco 20 carries a game or 20 touches a game, or Dalvin Cook or Derrick Henry, I'm taking Dalvin Cook or Derrick Henry. Maybe not Zeke anymore, but I'm taking Dalvin Cook or Derrick Henry. Now, I get it. Cost is different, right? And that's the point, that is an important piece of this. But if we're just talking about ability, right? I'm taking those guys for this year 10 times out of 10.
Well, yeah, I mean that's kind of a non-conversation, right? Because that's kind of like saying, yeah, I would take every Pro Bowl player based on ability to be on my team.
I don't think it's a
cost be damned. Like
there's
I think more that goes into it.
There are genuinely football people that have bought into this narrative that running backs aren't valuable, that would tell you that Isaiah Pacheco is the same thing. Like, it provides the same value. And I think that that's crazy talk. Now, cost relative, maybe. But I'm telling you, there are people that just think like there are people that think that these incredible football players don't have any value in the NFL. And that's nuts to me. That think it doesn't matter who you put at that position. They'll all do the same thing, basically, which is crazy. There are people that think that. So if these guys if you can get them and you can get them in and massage it in, because now at this point, like, use what you've got in the cap. Like, you've got it, use it. Bring one for contenders. Heck yeah. Now, I wouldn't trade. Like, what do you got to trade for?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you a 5th round pick if I've got to take that contract on. You
Right.
take
I'm
the
not giving
contract
up,
on, I'll make it a 3rd round pick.
I'm not giving up valuable trade or draft capital to bring in a Dalvin Cook or a Derrick Henry. But if there was a
Zeke Elliott doesn't cost you anything.
Situation, right, that might be a different story.
Yeah, and I think all that stuff matters, and don't be surprised if some contenders add that way before it's all said and done. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back, tell you what's on tap today. Sports Daily, Albracht and Castor coming right back.
This is an important notice to all U.S. taxpayers. The IRS is
All right, everybody, that does it for us on this Tuesday. Appreciation to Colin Klein for jumping on in the first hour. If you missed K-State's offensive coordinator, you can go back and listen for free on the Odyssey app. Thanks for listening to us. Thanks for watching us if you're watching our video stream. Jim Rome next, Bob and Jeff, Maggie and Perloff, Zach Gelb, and then Wichita State Baseball in Memphis opens up the AAC tournament. That's at 6:10 pregame coverage. Tommy and I will be back tomorrow to talk about it all. Chad Chambers producing. For Tommy, I'm Jacob. We'll see you then.